Well, hello, this is Peter Combs from Bidamount.com and P.O. Combs Asian Art in Gloucester, Massachusetts. And today is Friday, January 5th, 2018, our first video of the year. And before I get started, I wanted to share something with you folks that was going on around here yesterday. If you follow the news here in the United States and the weather, you know that the northeastern United States had a heck of a storm yesterday. And we live on Cape Ann, which is an island that sticks out off the coast of the most northern edge of Massachusetts. And this is what it looked like off our back deck yesterday morning, just as the storm was coming in. This was very early on. The storm started at about 7:30 in the morning and continued on into the night. And this was just the first edge of it. There's still fire trucks running around here. Excuse the background noise. This was a monster storm. Bridges went under, streets were flooded, hundreds of cars were destroyed that were parked during a snow ban at the local high school. It was a real mess. And then a little later on in the day, around noon at high tide, we had a full moon and an abnormally high tide. I went down to the end of our street, which was just around the corner from where this picture was taken, about 80 yards away. And this is what was going on down there a couple hours later, when the storm was getting into its full swing. And excuse the noise. We had winds of about anywhere from 50 to 70 miles an hour at this point. And I went down and I wanted to shoot some video of it in front of the house. It wasn't a far walk, so it was easy to do. You can hear it. If you want to hear how windy it was, here's the sound from it. It was loud. It was a monster. There is a house here on the left that sits up a bit. He did have some waves hit his house. Those are 10-foot waves rolling in. We had 10 to 20-foot seas. At any rate, that's what was going on in our neighborhood yesterday, and it was kind of wild, to put it mildly, very wild. All right, and now here we are, though. It's Friday. The sun is out. It's about 17. It's supposed to hit 12 below tomorrow, but that's okay. It's a weekend off. This is the newsletter page. Well, no, here's the newsletter page, excuse me. Last week's newsletter page. There wasn't a lot on it. It was kind of a quiet week due to the gap between Christmas and New Year's, which always seems to happen. It gets pretty quiet on eBay. People have other things to do. They have places to go. But some of the prices were pretty good for the things that were up there. First thing we're going to cover are two things that had to be resold due to the ever-present non-payment issue on eBay with buyers of Asian art. And it was first was this very attractive gilt bronze and cloisonne stand that was put up a few months ago. Didn't get paid for. It got put up again, and it did pretty well. It brought $5,000 yet again, which is pretty close to what it brought last time. I think some folks think that if they don't pay for it, they'll relist it and it'll go for a lot less. Doesn't always happen. Same with this pair of vases. This was a very nice pair of deep blue ground vases. They were good size. They were about 18 inches tall, very attractive, nicely painted. And last time around, they went for $4,300 or so. This time they sold for $4,000. All right. And I hope whoever the buyers are in both those lots pays their bill. Okay, that's important. And then we had this. This was a really interesting lacquer tray. You've seen these lacquer trays a lot. They're generally done in black. This one is gold, and it was beautifully done. The willow trees in the central scene and the use of mother of pearl, the coloration on it, whoever did this was really, really good at it. It's a nice old one, and it was in very good condition overall, and it did quite well. This little tray is about 3 by 3 inches, 3.5 by 3.5 inches, brought $1,230. Not an unreasonable price, though, because it looked like a rare one to me. And then there was this. This was a Tibetan bronze, the Vajras they're called. A nice-looking little ritual vessel. These ritual piece, rather. They tend to be 3 or so inches long, 4 inches long, typically. Sometimes they're bigger. They're 6 or 7 inches, but this is pretty typical. And this is a fairly standard one, probably early 19th century. And it did exactly what it should do. It brought $542, which is not unusual for these. Keep an eye out for them, because you do run into them in odd places. And sometimes junk shops, antique shops get them and they don't know what they are, and they just throw them in a box. You can pick them up for $5 or $10 sometimes. All right, and there was this very nice little, probably 18th century, maybe late Ming, bronze seal in the form of an elephant. I thought this was absolutely charming, nicely done. Here's the seal on the bottom, Here's a back view of it. Nice patination on it. Good patina all the way through. Nice and dark the way you see it. Nobody's polished it and messed it up that way. And it did pretty well. It brought $460. Perfectly nice little desk seal for if you collect scholars' objects. It was a good object. And then there was this. This was the little Gerardo ewer of the boy holding the pug. It's a well-known type, nicely done. It appeared to be in pretty good shape. And like some things Japanese now, the market quite hasn't come back to them yet. And he made the mistake of calling it antique Chinese, Japanese porcelain, so forth. And it's not. I want to see if it shows where and he listed it under China teapots, which was a big mistake. You should have listed it in Japanese. And he didn't even put up a double listing for it. At any rate, it only went for $204. Should have brought $300 or $400. All right, so somebody got a fabulous buy on that. All right, and then there was this nice cloisonné pair of figures of the elegant woman with her peacock. She's missing part of her headdress here. Yes, it's missing, and all that. But this was a nice piece. This was a nice example. Appears to be an ivory head. And that's a that could be ivory too. Anyway, with the attendant with the horsetail whisk with it, and it did very well. It brought $1,590. It's an early 20th century piece, but well done, very attractive. And then there was this pair of 18th century, possibly Qing period saucers, beautifully decorated, nice clear yellows, very carefully painted. You'll notice on this, all of the colors are well within their lines, nice and neatly done, and it's a pair. And I thought these were quite lovely. Here's a picture of the back. Notice the foot rim, the way it's done, very neatly done. A couple of minor, firing imperfections in the paste. Here are the back of the plates. And they did pretty well. They brought $192. They were 6 inches or so in diameter. And that's not an unreasonable price for those at all. They're very fine and good for a collection. They're all both in good condition, too. And then one of our favorite silver sellers seems to be this fellow, Super Shrink. He's actually here in Massachusetts. I've never met him. But he handles a lot of silver, and he handles Chinese silver as well. And this was a beautiful mug he puts up. He does a lot with good mugs. Very nicely done, beautifully done silver handle, dragon handle, nicely articulated, and brought $1,136. Very reasonable price for that. Sometimes he has these mugs go up, and they bring $1,500 to $1,900. So I think somebody during the holiday week got a particularly good buy on that. And then there's this beautiful little brooch. It looked like gilt silver and enamel with bats, and this good-looking little jade plaque in the center, nicely carved of the flower basket. Very classical in its shape. Here's the back of it. A nice piece, nice-looking gilt filigree on there, and good quality work all the way around with a signature, a mark. And it brought a fairly reasonable price, $527. That's a nice piece of jewelry for $527, I have to say. You go to a jewelry store, they sell these for about $1,600. All right, and then there was the Kangxi Femiverre with cobalt ground with a shaped rim. Nice-looking plate, beautifully done. Here's the back of it with the incense burner painted onto it. Nicely finished foot rim, very white. It has a slight ivory tone to it that you look for in these. Very smooth, very even, with a little ivory tone to snow white is what you want to see on the foot rims. And this one did fine. It brought $361. It was a perfectly reasonable price. Sometimes these go for a good bit more. And then there was this. This was the fan on the stand. This was a beautiful thing, probably early 19th century. I think the stand was probably done around the turn of the last century, but very lovely quality fan, and it went for $1,026. All right, not bad, but that's a nice fan. It's a beautiful fan, actually. And then there was the little late Ming period dish. It had an obvious firing imperfection up here in the rim. Something broke through, a little discoloration. But the painting and coloring on it is quite attractive. And here's a picture of the back of it, very typical for these late Ming dishes. and these little black specks appearing. And it did fine. It brought $204. Were it not for that firing perfection right here at about 1 o'clock on it, it probably would have brought another couple of hundred. But some people are really bothered by those little flaws. All right, and that was about it for the week. There weren't that many interesting things. We were sort of in a spot where we couldn't find too much to put on. But what we do have is coming up this week. Things have changed, and there's a lot of nice stuff coming up this week. It'll all be in the newsletter. This was in last week's newsletter. It closes later on today, Friday. We'll see how that does. It's up to $860. It's got 50 bids. Nice looking Yongchen, probably period teapot. Beautiful, beautiful with its under tray. And then there's this. This is a Qing Period. The seller over in Europe is back, and he's put this up. It's a very nice, large Kangxi Marken Period plate with a shaped rim. Beautiful, deep, dark blue cobalt. It's a nice-looking plate, and that should do pretty well. All right? And right now it's up to $73. He does have reserves on some of this stuff. I understand why. And then there's this. This is our friend Fiek over in the Netherlands has this up, a nice Famille Rose with Mandarin scene vase. This is a big one. I believe it's 25 inches tall with these ladies in a courtyard scene. It's all women. It's very interesting. Quite unusual in that regard. And it's up. It ends, let's see, when does this end? This is going to be in the newsletter. It ends next Tuesday. All right, very attractive vase. And then there is another one of these. We'd seen one earlier this week sell for around $540. Here's another one, and of Adra, and it is let's see, it's a silver bronze. This one's a little fancier. It's got 4 days to go, and we'll see how that does. You know what the last one brought. Calculate it from there. And then we have this Swato polychrome charger. This is a nice one. If you've seen these chargers around before, and most of you have, you'll notice that the centers of these are always worn. It's because they were used so much. And this one appears to be in fairly great condition as far as the enamels go. It's sort of energetically painted, somewhat folky as these are. And this is what the back of it should look like. Sort of messy. The Swato pieces were never finished very well on the back. They were sort of knocked out, and often with kiln grit, and you have these missed areas where they were glazing the back. Pretty typical. And there's one in a catalog that he's sharing for some reason. And you have these very fine glazes, cracked glazes. This doesn't in the glaze that doesn't go through. It's just on superficially from the piece shrinking, and it's up to $239. Has 8 days to go, but it's a nice one. It's 36 centimeters. It's a charger. It's a big one. It's about 15 inches wide. All right, and also this bronze. This is a nice early bronze, probably Ming. Beautifully done, nicely cast. Here's a picture of the bottom. There's a marked bottom, or no, that's on the inside. Excuse me. And there's a detail of it. And you want to check that out. And this is Egmont Horn has it. He gets great things. He says it's 18th to 19th century. I think it might be a little older, but check it out. It's a nice bronze. And this was another piece from Qing period. This is a Jiajing late Ming deer plate with sort of that apocryphal mark business going on the back. There it is. All right. Beautifully done all the way around. And we'll see how that does. That's up to $81. And he also has up this very nice Jiajing Marken period cup with a lady serving. She's carrying a wine tray. She's serving some wine. There's a child sleeping in a rickshaw. Pretty charming looking piece of porcelain. And let's see, what else do we have coming up this week? Somebody put up, this is interesting. This sort of cracked me up. You put up 5 Jiajing marked plates, Daosai in cobalt blue with some gilding. It's a fairly well-known pattern. It's probably of the period. It's probably Jiajing. And it's up to $29. There's 1 day and 22 hours to go. It's only had 5 bids. This could be a relative steal. Stays anywhere close to that number. All right. And then there's this. This is our friend Freak over in the Netherlands has this. This is a really nice looking, very attractive boy on a deer. It's probably late Ming or early 18th century. Elegant looking stand that the figure is standing on. He's carrying a vase of some kind in his hand. And all of this stuff will be in the newsletter this coming week. All right, so check it out. And we'll add more. There's a lot more. We just couldn't get it all in here for a preview. But thanks so much for visiting. And if you haven't subscribed yet to the newsletter on Bidamount.com, please come over and start the year with us. And if you haven't subscribed here on YouTube, please do so. We do these videos every week. All right. Thanks so much for visiting, and we'll see you all next time. All right. Thank you all very much. Bye-bye. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.